We've got Lisa McManus here from America's Test Kitchen. Lisa, thank you for coming back to Smart Kitchen Summit.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So one thing I want to know is for ATK, that's America's Test Kitchen. That's, the hip way of saying it. Like, do you have is there an editorial feeling or direction regarding smart gadgets? Because you tend to look at a lot of sort of just the basic tools people need. Is there sort of an editorial, not stance is too strong a word, but I know you kind of look at everything, but is there anything in terms of smart connected gadgets that you guys have an opinion towards, I should say, like in general?
Oh, definitely. I mean, our whole purpose in my department, which is the Tastings and Testings department, which means we test kitchen equipment for the home cook and also taste test ingredients. We look at everything someone would use in their home to make dinner, lunch, breakfast, whatever they're going to have, and really try to look at things that are going to make it easier and more accessible for everybody. We really will look at everything that comes out on the market for people to try to make their lives better. And we are keeping an eye on the smart kitchen area. I've tested several gadgets and appliances that are, smart, interconnected. One of the things we don't do is installed appliances like refrigerators and ovens and stoves. We do everything short of that. So we will do countertop ovens and things like that. And some of them, have been great, and some less so. Our readership, we survey them all the time for what they want us to cover. We are not ad supported. We are completely independent. So we buy every product that we test. We buy multiple copies of it. We put it through average user type testing where we will try it out different ways and try all the things you can do with it. And we do some abuse testing sometimes to see if it's durable and how you clean it and all the things you would do with it in its life cycle. And then we will report on what we found. And then we also listen to what our customers, our readers, our viewers have to say. And we've heard some good things and we've heard some not so good. So even when I've recommended something, I've heard people struggling, and we try to look at that again.
Have you ever taken a June oven and whacked it on the concrete like you do with a pan? I don't know if you saw 60 Minutes a few months back, but you were out there.
Nailing on skillets, yes,
yeah.
On a concrete block. Yeah, I mean, we do that with things like skillets because I think they're really the hard knock piece of gear in the kitchen. People really don't baby them, and they shouldn't have to. Something like an appliance like a June oven, we would not,
drop it out a window.
No, that's not serving a practical purpose, but I will tell you I probably cooked at least 30 different things. Yeah. And then as I was testing, they came out with a new version that was a third of the price and had a few different features, so I got that, and I did another 30. So by the time I reviewed it, I kind of knew what it could do.
So in a world where everything is, let me rephrase that, where everyone is connected and everyone has an opinion, what is sort of the future role for a publication like America's Test Kitchen?
We'll be doing the same thing, I think, because honestly, we will go out and buy everything, and we will compare it to what you already have and say, should you get this? Is this good? And why? And we will tell it like it is because we don't have advertising support, so we will buy it, and we will really tell you we're there for the user. We're not there for anybody else.
So as you get these devices, regardless, let's just say, this room is filled with a lot of people. Thanks for coming. There's a lot of people from across the food tech landscape, right? Some are startups just getting going. Some are sort of probably already at market and creating products. What are sort of what are the things you want people to know about the review process and kind of what you're looking for in new products?
Well, I mean, as I said, we're really looking for things that are practical, that are functional. If it comes in 15 colors, that's nice, but we don't really care. We want to know it works. It's got to be a good value for the money. It has to do something better than, or at least as good as, what you already have to make food you're probably already making. So I'm not sure. We will look at stuff. Sometimes I've been surprised. I can usually look at things and go, I don't know if that's going to be really useful. But, we buy it, we try it, and sometimes we're really surprised.
where do you think people fall down mostly? So is there something in, like, the hardware is great, but the app is horrible to use, or they don't pay attention to sort of the build quality, or they're not paying attention to how it cleans, is something that you mentioned? What do you see most often?
Yeah, you can usually tell with a little bit of use which thing they focused on, kind of what their forte is. It's kind of like when you see a menu in a restaurant and they've got 5 kinds of cuisine in 12 pages versus somebody who kind of homes in on a style. Not everybody's good at everything, and if you are, that's a real big win. I think the onboarding process, when you're kind of firing up the app or whatever it is and seeing how it works, if it's really easy versus hair pulling time. I mean, I've been on the phone or emailing and whatever with tech support because I have to figure it out, but I'll tell you, if I wasn't being paid to figure it out at that point, it would be out the window. And that's frustrating. If you can't get in there and get on it and play with it without a lot of annoyance, then you're not going to use it. So that's a big one. And then honestly, if the appliance is good, I mean, that's the real foundation. Is it going to work? I once tested a slow cooker that was connected, and every time if you walked by it, it had no indication of what was going on inside. You had to fire up something else to look at it. So you couldn't walk by and go, oh, it's going to be done in 2 hours, like all the other slow cookers I was testing next to it, which would have a countdown on the front. It was looking really futuristic and sleek to the point where it was like, I can't tell what's going on. And then often you were supposed to be able to change it. Say the soccer game ran over or something, and you can say, oh, dinner should be delayed a little, and you want to adjust it. If you adjusted it from your phone from any distance whatsoever, it kind of looked like it turned off, which is hair-raising when it's a slow cooking pail because, hey, I checked on it at lunch and shut off the meat. And when we get home at 5 or 6, it's going to be bad. So I've wasted all this day. And it's a panicky feeling. And I was luckily upstairs, and I would run down to the kitchen and look at it and go, oh, no, I didn't turn it off, or maybe I did. But that's not going to solve that problem of let me control this from afar. And that's what that was promising.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was not my favorite product.
So I think that actually brings up, that's a nice segue. You were recently in an article in Wired about how the smart kitchen is dumb. And one of the things that was in that article was about, you can laugh, it's fine. One of the things in that article was about the desire to put controls on the device, which I think is actually a really smart idea. And sometimes it seems like people in their desire to create a super high-tech, sleek gadget, move everything to an app. Have you seen a lot of that? Or, are you echoing that sort of sentiment? Like, hey, if you're building something...
I really think that my old impression was, no, it's got to be able to be controlled from the machine too and not have a separate thing. I think what convinced me otherwise when it's done really well was the Chef Steps Joule, the sous vide cooker that has no controls on it and it's only on the phone. And we have people who comment on our stories and say, well, I would never get that because it doesn't have controls on it. But that app is really solid. When you do something, it does it. And it's kind of like, I think about the early days of, ordering things on the internet. I don't know if anyone cast their mind back, if you remember the early days of ordering anything, just mail ordering 6 to 8 weeks to get there. Or then when it went online, you get these sites where you're getting through the order and you get to the end, you go, oh, no, wait, I think I want one of those, not two. And you'd have to start the whole process again. And then you weren't sure if your credit card was being stolen. And it was a nerve-wracking experience. And then a company like Amazon comes along and you can go back and forth. You can see what you ordered 6 months ago. Everything is rock solid when you're using it. And that gives you the confidence to keep using it and to kind of forget about that part of it. And you're just doing what you're doing. You're buying something or you're cooking something. And that, if the app is good, if it's completely intuitive and seamless and easy and rock solid, doesn't seem to turn off the machine or whatever, then I don't really care if it doesn't have controls. It's nice because sometimes you don't want to have to go do that, but it'd be nice, but it's not 100% necessary if you feel that complete sense of confidence. And that really only comes through designing both a good appliance and a good app.
Yeah, so spend the money on designers and apps is a good lesson. One thing, I just want to kind of level set here for people who may not understand. Can you walk us through just what, I understand that you guys go through and you buy the products and you test them out, but just what the review process is for you. So what is something incoming that is interesting to you to where you would go out and buy the product? How long are you testing it for? What's the process so people understand what it takes? You're not just like playing with it for an afternoon.
No, it takes over a month to do one review. And it's even really longer, but my bosses might be listening. We're under deadline pressure like everyone else, but we will take the time to figure it out. And we basically will look at the marketplace, what's out there, what's happening, what trends are going on. People will ask us for stuff. We'll need to update something we've done before. We will shop like you're shopping for that thing, and we'll look at all the materials and stuff and say, okay, well, this is the range of things we want to bring in. We usually comparatively test, so we'll do skillets, for instance, and I tested 15 skillets. That was an unusually large story, or cookware sets or something like that. And we'll buy something from a variety of styles and features to really cover that category. Occasionally, we put a price cap on if we think that something is way out of range. And we bring it in, we buy more than one copy. One copy is kind of the photo video set. We try to keep it clean, but it's also the backup in case the main one goes wrong. We design protocols, we write them out. We propose the story first, I should back up, and we write a whole proposal of what we want to do, what we've said before, why are we doing this now, what models might we include, what tests might we do. We all get together and review it. We're very collaborative at America's Test Kitchen. It's a whole process where we really all put our heads together. It's not one person's opinion. We write out all our testing protocols. What recipes are we going to cook? Why are we doing those things? What abuse or cleanup issues are we going to be looking at? How do people use this? Are we addressing all those different ways? We all weigh in on that. And then we go in the kitchen and we actually cook with the thing, and we try to make a lot of food exactly the same way. We prepare all the ingredients and everything else, all other factors on a level playing field, and then change out that one item that we're testing and then the next. We get all the way to the end, we write a story, it's reviewed by a bunch of people, they pick it apart, they send us back to the kitchen sometimes, we rewrite, we retest, and it just goes on and on. You own it forever. Once you've approved something, we buy it and we put it in the kitchen, and all of our test cooks who are developing recipes will use it day in and day out, and they all have really good knife skills, and you don't want to make them mad, so you got to live with that thing. Once you've picked it, you're not just like, la, on to the next story. You have to keep that going, keep an eye on it. We know if it breaks, under what circumstances. We may have more testing in a year. And people write in and, will comment to us, and we have to answer questions about it as if we made it. So we own that thing, and we don't recommend lightly.
Okay, excellent. Is there one thing or is there one wish or thing you were looking forward to in terms of where the kitchen is heading? So that can be like, do you wish for more like induction, like different types of cooking types, or fewer smarts, or just like better durability? There seems to be sort of this push and pull, right? Like there's also this direct-to-consumer brand, which is just sort of low-tech stuff that's going direct-to-consumer. Mm-hmm. And then there's also the higher-end stuff where it's connected and it recognizes your food and it does all that other stuff. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if you personally are looking at kind of seeing all the stuff that comes in and going, I wish there's a big hole here, and I wish someone would fill this.
I actually thought of something that's almost kind of the negative of that. A lot of the smart products take over the cooking for you, but you still have to do all the prep and all the cleanup. And it's like, wait a minute, in the kitchen, the head chef does the cooking and everybody else does that other stuff. And a lot of these smart products take away the fun part, which is cooking the food, and leave you with all the dishes and the parts to wash and all the stuff to chop to put into the thing to make the food. And it's like, hey, wait, how did I get demoted to be the scullery maid here instead of the cook? So I would focus on the joy of cooking, for lack of a better word. It is fun to cook. It's fun to make food come out the way you want it to come out and the way you want to eat it. That's why I cook. I cook because I want to eat something good, and I enjoy the process. So I know I'm a little bit unusual, but mostly it's because I like to eat. It's not because I, want to scrub stuff. So I really look for products that are going to make the cooking more dependable, the outcome more reliable, more delicious, and it's going to help me in that part, not the other stuff. I mean, I have a dishwasher, whatever, but the fun part of cooking should stay in there.
All right, excellent. Well, can we give a big round of applause, please, for Lisa McManus? Thank you so much. And ironically enough, we're going to bring up Matt Van Horn. He's the co-founder and CEO of June, which will do all the cooking for you, which is what I like, actually, because I am a horrible cook. So I like being able to. Okay, just so I don't know if is anybody who has a June here. Anybody have a June? All right, just so you know, like the bacon is life altering in that, as is the pizza reheat. My wife was like, whatever you spent on this is fine for the pizza, because it's really magical. But let's just start off a little bit here. Can you give us, how are people using the June? What kind of stats can you give us just about June usage in the wild? What are people using it for? Are they using automated cook programs? Are they using manual cook programs? What's happening with Junes?
Absolutely. So June right now is a 7-in-1 oven, so you can air fry, dehydrate, bake, broil, roast, etc. And the best feature of the June is it's the first appliance that's getting better over time instead of worse. We're actually about to hit our 6-year anniversary as existing as a company, which is crazy. Yeah. Probably about the same as long as the spoon has existed. And for us, what's amazing is we have all the data of all the customers who've agreed to share their data with us, which is 95+%. And so we know what the most popular foods are, what the biggest cooking days of the year are. And what's interesting is in the earlier days of the company, people were using what we call the primitives, so bake, roast, etc. That was in the early days of the company, that was the thing that was used the most. But on a June, we have our automated cook programs where we've had a professional chef that's trained the oven to think like a chef and respond like a chef. So I'll give an example of our steak program. It starts with a convection roast, then a high-power broil to give it that nice char, that nice caramelization, and then we'll look at that particular piece of meat, and we are able to compare it to the pattern matching of all the pieces of meat cooked in all the June ovens, and then predict how long it's going to take with our feature called ETA. And so what's interesting, though, as time has progressed, to answer your question, is people are trusting the oven more and more with our automated cook programs. And so people are using our automated cook programs more than cooking manually, more than using the primitives, which is something we're really proud of as our team, because we're constantly trying to find ways to make it better.
So you're doing all the fun part, is what Lisa said.
So the way I would think about that is we got into this because we love food, we love cooking. And for me, the joy of cooking is getting my hands dirty and doing the work. And one of our pro features on the June for people like Lisa is you can actually write your own multi-step cook programs. So think of it like I know it's kind of a bit of a tech crowd in the room. Think of it like we've built this precision box with APIs that we're able to control with a great user experience. And so you're able to say, you know what, I don't like the June steak program. I'm going to write my own. I actually like to broil at the end, and the level 10 broil is too strong. I prefer level 7 broil. And you can write your own cook programs and use that instead.
Can you share with us, because people love numbers, like what are the most popular nights for the June, and what are people cooking the most? Do you know that off the top of your head?
Yeah, so something super interesting. So our biggest cooking days of the year are Thanksgiving and the Super Bowl, and has been historically. And what's interesting is those are the only 2 days of the year also where manual baking goes beyond automated baking. So if you think about what the June does, is it's solving weeknight dinners. So imagine you're able to take a nice piece of salmon from Whole Foods, put in the June, 8 minutes later, no preheat, you're eating a perfect piece of salmon that is as if a chef cooked that piece of salmon. And so those are automated cookers. So we're able to solve that for you and your family on the regular days. But then on Thanksgiving and on Super Bowl, people kind of go back to their kind of classic bake at 350 recipes that they've done for many years.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so I'm interested to see, tell me about the role of community, because I'm a member of the June Oven Facebook page. People are, one of the things people show is them cleaning their oven, which is crazy. People are showing constantly, like, this was before and after, and the sparkling, but what is the role of community in sort of how you come out with new features, how you interact with people? Because you also have not just those external third-party outlets, but also just the app itself. So if I say, this cook didn't work, I get a note saying, hey, we're sorry that didn't work. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? So talk to me a little bit about the role of community and how you're growing the product.
Yeah, so the feedback loop is so important. So for us, we're able to collect data. And one of the things you mentioned in our app, if you're cooking something and you're not happy with your bacon and you sad face it, it's literally a sad face in the app. If you sad face your bacon, that will create a ticket on our end, and we're able to figure out, was it a software engineering problem, a hardware engineering problem, or a culinary problem, or was it a customer error? And we have all the sensor data from that cook session, and we're able to figure that out and adjust accordingly. And so one of the biggest disasters in company history is something we actually call Bacon Gate. So I'm glad to hear you're a fan of our bacon. When we launched originally, we actually were getting lots of sad faces on bacon. People were like, "You burnt my bacon, it's undercooked, you suck. This is supposed to be the magic oven, I want to return it." But what's amazing is we had all the sensor data, we had all the cook logs, we had all the complaints, and so our engineering team and our culinary team was able to come together and solve the bacon problem. And so we turned one size fits all bacon program into 64 different bacon programs, but that would be a bad user experience to choose from a list. So we added some intelligence to that. And so we actually will count the number of slices and remember your preference from last time. And so if you like a thin cut or a thick cut, et cetera, it's just literally you put your bacon in one tap, good to go. And we don't really get complaints about bacon anymore. It's one of our most popular cook programs.
What is sort of the threshold for when you include an automated cook program, right? So you rolled out earlier this year Beyond Burgers and Beyond Sausages as a specific program. What are you looking for in terms of a threshold? So it needs to be this popular, or it needs to be in this many stores, or this much feedback? What is that? What's sort of the criteria around that?
So we're very lucky that we are able to have a mix of editorial. It's like Beyond Meat was editorial, but we're also getting requests from the community. And we also have the data on how people are cooking if they're not using our automated cook programs. And so for customers that have opted to share their data with us, we're able to figure out what they're doing in the June manually, what they're baking at 350, et cetera, categorizing that content on the intelligence side, and then building cook programs around that. An example of that is tortillas. So tortillas, we didn't have a cook program for. It was something we hadn't really thought about, because it's not quite baking. It's a reheat function, but it's not toasting. And so, but it was very, very popular. People were reheating their tortillas in the June just by doing bake at 350. So we added that, and in the bread section, that's one of our top 10 food types now, is our tortilla program, one for corn, one for flour. And so we're able to do that based off of just customers using it that way, and then us being able to enable an easier and better experience for them.
Okay. Let's talk about the June as a platform, because you also added Whole Foods as a category where you can cook an automated cook programs for a number of Whole Foods. What are you sort of looking for in terms of like a platform partner? So for those of you that don't know, on the touch screen on the June, there is an actual button for Whole Foods if you scroll to the sides, and then within that there are a bunch of foods that it will automatically cook. What are you looking for? Because again, we have people from across the food tech landscape. What are you looking for in partners on that platform to create, to get a button? What do they got to do to get a button?
It's a fair point. I think it's a mix of kind of a larger partnership as well as our community wanting that. Like something that we found with the early adopter June community is a lot of it is a Whole Foods crowd. And so for us, it was very clear that we wanted to work with them to write custom cook programs for the most popular foods that Whole Foods sells.
Okay. Now, you came out, your first gen, like you said, was 6 or 7 years, however many years ago. But now there are a bunch of smart ovens coming to market. We're going to talk with, Steve here in a second, who's got his own oven coming to market. And Amazon, who you were funded through the Alexa fund, is coming out with they just announced their $250 smart oven. And so I'm wondering how you see the competitive landscape and where June fits in, because it seems to be sort of all over the place, right? Like you've got your Tovala with the steam oven and their meal plan. We've got the June. You've got Whirlpool, I think. I can't remember now off the top of my head, but major appliances getting in to sort of the smart oven category. Where does June fit into all this, and what concerns you the most?
Yeah, so I think anyone investing in the space is good for everyone. For us, if someone were to look up a competing product, I would say, hey, go read Lisa's review of the June oven, or go read your review of the June oven. And so I think anyone pointing any traffic to smart oven is really good. And I think, I haven't seen the Amazon microwave yet, but I see it as a second generation of their microwave product, which they actually announced a year ago. And so even though it does have an air fry function, for us, I think that the June experience is actually quite different. But I'm looking forward to seeing it soon.
Right. Okay. So, are you all right? So you're excited. Of course, you're going to say that up here. It's a great, but they have
bigger budgets than me, and I'm excited about the Google results when you search for smart oven.
Fair enough. Okay, that's interesting. One of the things that I'm curious about is just, again, getting back to sort of who's using your oven and what and how, is one of the things that appeals in the Albrecht household is that everyone from my 9-year-old to my 9-year-old son to my 75-year-old parents uses a Joon, but for different reasons. Which is my son can read, so he can go, oh, cookie dough, I'm going to make chocolate chip cookies, and push a button and it does. My father, who is OCD about leaving the oven on, likes it because he knows that he can check and make it, make sure the oven's off and he's not going to burn the house down when he goes out someplace. So have you found just demographically, how is the Joon being used? What's sort of its sort of dispersion around the country?
Yeah, so it's surprisingly mixed. Like we thought it would be kind of a more male tech early adopter type crowd, and I'd say with our Gen 1 product that was too. But I'd say the audience with the Joon is surprisingly a bit older than we expected, a lot more female than we expected, especially from our Gen 1 to our Gen 2. And I think you described it well, multi-generational. Like we had a customer who reached out, and she's a grandmother, and she said that her grandkids would get dropped off, and they did not like going to grandma's house. But then grandma got the magic oven. And after getting the magic oven, their favorite activity is to go over there and cook with grandma, and they had never expressed interest in cooking before. And so another piece of feedback we got from just kind of on the grandparent side was, it just feels like my iPhone. I know how to use it. I can do this. And
a big to my dad because he can't use his iPhone.
But a big part of our DNA is Apple and user experience. My co-founder, Nikhil, was the first camera engineer on the iPhone, and a lot of our team comes from Apple. And so back to what Lisa was talking about, the joy of cooking, and all that matters is great food. That's it. And so if we can give the best possible experience that yields and leads to good food, then we've been successful.
Excellent. All right. Well, our time is up here, but you're going to be back in just a few minutes. I want to bring up Steve. So thank you. Big round of applause, please, for Matt Van Horn. He's also wearing the freshest kicks of anybody in the room, just to make sure you take a look at those. We've got now Steve Svajian of Anova, which really helped propel the sous vide market to sort of like mainstream acceptance. Where is sous vide now, and where does it need to go?
I think sous vide. I think the original thought was that there would be a sous vide device in every home in America, and I think the question is whether we still believe that's true. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it will be as ubiquitous as we originally thought, but I think it'll be pervasive. I do think it's somewhat of a niche product due to the fact that it takes so long to cook sous vide. I think we'll still see reasonable growth in the United States and North America. I think globally, there are some real growth areas like Latin America and Asia. I think we'll see a tremendous upswing in market adoption. So I think, just as a standalone, if we did nothing with the category today, I think we'd continue to see maybe 10% growth year over year in North America. Larger growth in other areas of the world, and I think the limiting factor on growth is the time it takes to cook, and then I also think there's been a lot of kind of our customer segment adopting different types of dietary lifestyles. So we're seeing a lot of early adopters adopt a vegan lifestyle, for example, and I think sous vide does particularly well in cooking proteins. So. I don't think it appeals to that market, and I think, but I do think it's a good way to cook certain vegetables and dishes other than meat. But I think the original marketing around it was it cooks the perfect steak,
right?
And given sort of the news cycle around the perfect steak,
right?
I think it suffered from kind of that being associated with that. So
you can't vacuum seal 2 Impossible patties.
You can.
Okay, yes, you can, but I don't know if people would think about that.
Yeah, but that's not. Yeah, I mean, that's not really where it shines. It shines with steak.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
So is that part of what's driving your move into these other categories, like the oven? You made a big announcement the other week about, just kind of bringing back, hey, this is our oven. It's a steam oven, but it's a multifunction oven as well. First, why don't you explain to people who haven't had a chance to learn about it yet what the oven is and does, and sort of when they can expect to see it?
Yeah. I'm looking at Scott. Scott is, for those that don't know, Scott was one of the early sous vide evangelists, and he was originally a competitor of mine and with Innova, and he was running Sancerre, and we partnered together on this oven. And I think Scott is he's a great guy to speak to this. And I'll do my best to give Scott's presentation, but I think we've the benefits of steam are great. I mean, and they're manifold. I mean, it's a very versatile way to cook. And yes, we see steam or a combination oven as the type of appliance that should be in every home. Whereas I think the sous vide device was limited to being sort of a niche product. We think a countertop combi oven is a must-have in most homes because of the versatility, because you can cook perfect cookies, perfect vegetables and fish. And if we were to build kind of a map of things you should cook with the combination oven versus sous vide, I think you'd find that almost every item outside of maybe a few, things like steak, I think we'll continue to see sous vide shine. But for most foods, you're going to want to cook them with the combination oven. And just for people that don't know, combination oven includes steam, convection cooking. There's this concept of the wet bulb that you'll become familiar with, and dry bulb temperature, and that means that the temperature of dry air is different than the temperature that food experiences. And I think the example, I don't know how to present this other than to just copy Scott. Like the example that Scott gives is he talks about what it's like to walk into a 200-degree dry sauna. If you were to do that, you could walk back out again in half an hour, and you'd feel pretty good. If you were to walk into a 200-degree steam room, you'd start to cook immediately, and you would crawl out of the steam room, I think, partially cooked. So, and the reason for that is that water is a much better conductor of heat. And so steam offers us the ability to quickly kind of reheat foods, I think, for one. It locks in moisture at 100% relative humidity. You get sort of sous vide-like results. And then we've got the opportunity, because of the other functions in the oven, to create kind of like a sear-like finish. So it's an incredibly versatile device. I think the way that we're approaching it is unique. And we've got some, we'll share more details as we divulge more about the product, but there are some ways that we're doing it that I think are going to be advancements over even the most expensive kind of built-in machines. And
are you still on timeline for next year? Is it what I'm echoing what your blog post said, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next year.
Okay. Okay. That's very narrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's kind of surprising me in talking with you right now is just how open you are about referring to sous vide as sort of a niche market, right? Because I'm wondering how that reality right now meets with what you went into it with a few years ago. Also, just in the fact that you also just this year, in addition to the oven, you just released your own vacuum sealer for sous vide cooking.
Yes.
And then you trimmed down the Innova precision cooker and did the Pro, I believe, as well this year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're still putting stuff out there.
Yeah, we still think it's a good. Yeah, don't take that sort of to an extreme. It's like we still think it's a good, vibrant market, and we still think it provides a ton of value in the cooking experience, right? Like there is no better way to cook certain foods than if you've got a sous vide device. So I don't want people to have the wrong takeaway and think like that market's dying. I said 10% growth, which in any other category is great, right? And 40% growth in certain regions of the world. So I think we're still going to see an upswing in sous vide cooking, and we still think it's worthy of investment. I do think there's been a bit of a kind of a premature slowdown. And what we originally saw as a device that should be in every home likely is not going to be in every home. And I think it's going to appeal to certain individuals over others. And primarily it's been the early adopter. And there's a certain customer profile that I think takes to sous vide. And there are others that are kind of more reluctant to experiment with the technology. So
how do you reach those people then? So like to your point, everybody knows
Yeah.
it makes a good steak, right? Like but it does take time. So what sort of messaging are you having to go out there with to either educate people or I guess that's the best. I guess that's the best way of putting it. Like, hey, it's not just meat, and hey, it's good for a lot of things, and here's what you should try.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think just showing kind of the versatility of the technology is important. Showing people that you can do desserts with it. There are techniques that like our community is discovering that we kind of never really envisioned. Like, things like cold brew coffee, and I do think it very much appeals to kind of the DIY, the do-it-yourself sort of early adopter that wants to experiment and try new techniques at home. And so if you fit into that demographic, and I think that it's great for you. If you don't, you're probably going to look for role models, and role models that are cooking different things like different desserts or different dishes that you would have on a weeknight. Currently, most of the role models cook steak, and so I think what we need to do is hold up different people in the community that are really experimenting with interesting dishes. And I think that, that's kind of the messaging that we've looked for, is like to just sort of hold up members of the community that are doing really cool things. And we find that, there are others out there that kind of, will take to that message and run with it.
What kind of data, we were talking about, one of the advantages of being connected is you can understand what people are cooking, what recipes they're doing based in your app. From that, can you share with us just how people are using the Innova and what they're using it for?
Yeah, I mean, without being creepy about it, like we're not, I think.
No, I don't think you're like, hey, that was a nice sirloin.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we know the different types of proteins that people cook. Like, we allow people to name their recipes and to save recipes, so we know kind of what people are doing. We can kind of infer things from time and temperature. We know, like I think Valentine's Day is a really kind of popular time to cook. The holidays do really well. The weekend, people cook over the weekend, so. In terms of making sort of other useful inferences from the data, I think a lot of that has to do with kind of marketing tactics, which we're sort of reluctant to get into. So, yeah.
No, that's fine. I just didn't, again, just understanding, you just have greater insight into how people are using and evolving with your product. So that's all I was just wondering, if people, are using it to on Super Bowl day, or they're using it on weekends, or it upticks in the summer because people are grilling more, or maybe it's more in the winter because then they're not outside grilling. I don't know. That's just
we definitely see there's for sure a slowdown during the summer. I think people are more inclined to grill. We see people cooking on the weekends. I don't think it's a weeknight, every day type of device. I think it's something that it takes a little bit longer to cook sous vide. But if you're looking for a great result, and you want to cook over the weekends, I think it's a great technique. We're not seeing, a lot of traction on the weeknights. But I say that a lot of people cook sous vide every day, but I think for, your everyday user, it's primarily kind of a weekend sort of special occasion type thing.
Excellent. That's interesting. Is at the risk of sounding dim, is there a way you can, because the big thing for us, in our household, we use the Innova, but then it became it's going to be 100 minutes, right? Or whatever it is, right? And so you're just is there a way to speed that up and still have that precision?
Yeah, we think there is. Yeah,
okay.
And we've been working on it. I think there are a few different ways to do it, to approach it. So, yes, we think that's a solvable problem.
Okay, so you're not just encountering physics at that point. There is a way, possibly, without giving too much away, that you could you could shave off some minutes off that 100 minutes to get 100.
Yes,
to get that done. Excellent. Well, big round of applause, please, for Steve. We're going to have everybody come up now to the chairs, stage, panel, whatever it is. Just to continue this, and then we will let you go for lunch, because it's almost that time. And then we can also, if you have questions, we might be able to open it up a little towards the end here with any questions. So I want to talk to you guys. You guys have been, this is not your first Smart Kitchen Summit. You've been here for multiple years. What have you kind of seen? What's taken you by surprise in terms of where we're at now versus where we were? Like I remember Innova was at the first one when we were at that little tiny place down by the train tracks, and the trains kept going by every couple of hours. What have you seen, where we're at now? I'm not just saying like, oh, we're much bigger, but in terms of the industry, where are we at? Where has it changed? Where has it surprised you? Anything that you've kind of can observe?
Yeah, I think it was originally it was sort of hardware driven, and I think the emergence of companies that are kind of providing services and that are providing software, I think that's interesting. I think it's evolving in a very kind of disorganized, chaotic way, which we perhaps should have anticipated, where you'll have a whole bunch of different players in the space that are trying to connect with each other and do different things. Originally I think there were a few primary players that felt like they might own the ecosystem, which I think was kind of naive. I think it kind of reminds me of sort of like Web 1.0 and kind of late 90s. I think everybody expected sort of this organized set of information to carry forth and things to be orderly. And I think just the law of entropy is real, and it's hard to kind of fight, and things will continue to evolve in sort of a disorganized, chaotic fashion. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing in just the number of different services and different ways to interact and provide value. So it's not following any kind of neat sort of linear pattern. It's which I think would have been far easier to imagine. It's sort of just kind of chaotic and all over the place.
And far easier to cover. That's actually kind of interesting. Lisa, from your perspective, how much do you feel you need to stay on top of things? Or like, not maybe you personally, but like your staff, your minions? Because there's so much happening in so many different directions. Like, how much do you feel like you need to stay on top of everything that happens versus just sort of sticking with what ATK does best, which is sort of like, these are methods that work because they're tested and tried?
We obviously want to, if people want to know about product, we want to have an answer for them. So we think it's really important, and that's why I'm here. So it's something that I think is evolving. This is now my third year back, and it feels like a really exciting brainstorm coming here. Everybody's like got lots of stuff going on, and I feel like it's still shaking out, but there's products that are emerging that are really useful and that are good, and people are meeting each other, and I feel like stuff is coming together, and it's really, it's going to be more rather than less in the future that I'll be covering smart products.
So I just want to stick on that for just a second. So, and I don't think you meant this in a pejorative way, but do you still think that we're still stuck on brainstorming versus sort of moving forward?
No, but I think there's still some of that like excitement and chaos. That's kind of good chaos, but it's definitely shaping up and moving forward in a more clear way. Even just going to CES and seeing, the food tech event that you guys did. There's so many players, and it's there now. They've kind of put a stake in the ground at CES and said, here we are. Food is important in this tech world, and consumers are interested. So it's growing, and it's clearly happening.
I want to ask Matt. I want to change the question just a little bit. Just as you've grown, into Lisa's point earlier, just about things like apps and making sure they work. As you've scaled up June, what has been sort of how you scale your team? Hardware versus software versus data versus, I don't even know, culinary. How are you sort of splitting that up as you look to grow?
So we're still really lean. I think we're 53 people right now in San Francisco, and the largest team is software team. So by far the majority of our team is software, and we have a very small hardware team. And even within our software team, there's so many different intricate levels of different sects of expertise that we have. So even those are really small teams. That adds up to being a much larger team. But obviously, software is where we spend our time, the most time.
Software goes not just in the software for the oven itself, right? But then also the design for the app, which seems like it needs to be
mobile, cloud, machine intelligence, embedded, frameworks. It's a lot.
Yes, it is. What about for you, Steve? As you guys have scaled up, what has sort of been the sort of the split? You also have do you still have the downtown area in San Francisco? The kitchen?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Which is a really cool space right in downtown SF. But as you are growing the company, especially as you're looking forward with the oven coming out sometime next year, What is your sort of split in hardware and software and data and analytics and design?
Yeah, I think we're very software heavy. I think it's similar to what Matt described. I think we're very focused on investing in software, and that being said, like the hardware has to be great, and so but I think we can accomplish that with fewer resources than we can with software. So we tend to be software heavy.
I want to ask all of you, just in terms of interfaces in the kitchen, there's sort of an evolving space. You not only have the phone, right, which can control things, or you have Alexa and Google Assistant with voice. Do you think there's a future in different kinds of interfaces? If so, what kinds of interfaces? Like, I don't know if, I think voice is still trying to figure out its role in the kitchen, because like to the point of a voice-powered microwave, if you're standing in front of the microwave, you don't really need, it's easier to push the 30-second button than it is to maybe connect to Alexa to do it. So are you looking at other interfaces? I know that you're hooked in with Alexa, actually, right, Matt? But is there any other things, and you can speak just in broad terms, like whether it's gesture or computer vision or anything like that, but are there areas that you see in terms of how people interact with their kitchen that are changing?
Well, it's really interesting. So from a big thing when you're in hardware is cost. How much does it cost to make the thing? For example, if June got rid of their screen, that would be a very wise cost decision if people just use their mobile app. However, it's a bad experience. We've researched it, and we know the importance of having a display and having the ability to control your oven from the oven. And voice is great to check in. And so the most popular use case of the June is actually saying, Alexa, ask June the ETA, so our prediction algorithm to predict how long it's going to take until your food is ready, so you can be in the other room and not have to worry about when your steak or your chicken is going to be ready. And I think that the phone is also great for checking in, but it's not always the best starting point. And so a lot of our customers will use our walkthrough guided videos on their iPad or on their mobile device. And then on the oven, they're able to have this great dashboard. They can start things, stop things, et cetera, and then they can check in with voice.
You're not just going to create a pocket for me to slide my phone in on the front of the oven? No, Lisa, do you guys look at anything like Alexa? How broad does your kitchen experience go, right? Like, what's the edge, and then what's sort of like, well, a Google Assistant is kind of in the kitchen, but it's not? Do you see what I'm saying?
No, I mean, I think that people are using them everywhere, so we got to try it too. We've got to do it, and we bought them, and I've tried to turn things on and off with them, and it's a lot of fun.
You say that, but there's sort of
They have now a feature on I'm not sure. I guess it's the Alexa that they on the Echo Show that says, "What does Alexa think you said?" Which I think is super interesting, because that's exactly what you go through. Sometimes it's like, no, that's not what I wanted. Start over. And I would just rather go push a button on anything than argue with a thing. But, if you are, in the bathtub or something and you want to change the temperature of the oven and you want to tell Alexa to do it, that's great. But as just a routine thing, sometimes it's more annoying, and until it's really, really absolutely you say it and it happens without any of that confusion, it's still got to get to that point where it's rock solid.
Recognizing that there are probably a lot of things that go on in the test kitchen at the same time, do you ever use any of those voice assistants for timers, or are you all just straight like button pushing timers?
No, I've used it for timer. I like it for that. It's really great. I mean, that's one of the things it's really good for, is say, hey, set a timer for 5 minutes or whatever, and setting a timer for 5 minutes. It's like, okay, glad you did it. But yeah, I mean, that's useful, especially if you've got your hands dirty, you're making bread or something, and there's steps in the recipe, and you want to mess up your phone or a timer. And so, yeah, there's things it's really good for, and I'm looking forward to it being good for more things without any aggravation. But, that's the point where when it's easier, people will use it.
Sure.
Than the old way. And if the old way is easier, like turning on the microwave with pushing the 30-second button versus telling it, Alexa, turn on the microwave for 30 seconds. Turning on the microwave for 30 seconds. It's like, there's the 30 seconds. I could have been done.
Yes, I could have had my popcorn already. Steve, are you, so, one of the discussions we had earlier was about controls, and Matt was talking about having controls on his device, and you have controls on your device. Is there any thought, have you looked at other interfaces at all? How are you tied into anything else that might connect with your precision cooker?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've looked at voice, voice app and kind of manual interfaces. I don't know that there's anything else that we'd explore. I do think maybe more interesting than kind of how you're interacting is who and kind of what you're interacting with. And I think we think more about sort of the experience you might have with a community while you're cooking a recipe. Or if people are going to interact more with AI as they cook a recipe. I think those conversations are really interesting. Like, I think the step-by-step recipe has been just very difficult for people for companies to come along and nail because the logic just breaks down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But I think if you have a community there, humans are really good at kind of intervening and giving you advice and hints along the way. So I think that's an interesting. Sort of evolution is how do you create a platform where a community can kind of be involved in the cooking process. So I don't know.
Yeah, one thing it just occurred to me just a couple years ago, I think, and this is a total side note, but I think the Wirecutter recommended the Innova as a travel sous vide thing. Do you remember that? Am I making that up? I swear I'm not making that up. But
people travel with it. Yeah, they're a accessory, like you can buy a traveling case. Like,
that's what I was wondering. Like, how much of an ecosystem can you build up around that, if any? I just thought that was sort of an interesting side note. I'll open it up. We have a few minutes left. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
Matthew, sorry.
Oh, I can repeat the question if we need to.
So you mentioned that earlier your assumption was that people who are going to buy the Joule oven will be young male techies, but later on as you shipped it out, you realized that it will be more older, more female. How did that affect your product, and did it I know it did not materially affect the product, else you wouldn't have been alive, but how did that affect your strategy, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, it wasn't so much a strategy. Like we always knew that this device would be for people that wanted to cook more. And my co-founder and I, we build products for ourselves. Like we're obsessed with building products that solve problems in our lives. And the point of life that we're at right now is we both are married with young kids, and we need to get food on the table and have it be high quality because we do love cooking. And we found that we were cooking less and less because lives get busier, Postmates is happening, and we wanted to have a solve for that. And so I think the reason that we were a little more male and techie is just the earliest press we got. So literally it was press articles. It wasn't that we were trying to speak to that audience. It was just TechCrunch was writing about us in the beginning before Lisa was because it was just the way. And again, that was based on pre-order. So we couldn't have even given Lisa a product back then because it was still being built. And so I think that's the reason for that.
Okay. Did it materially change anything for you? No, it did not, right?
No, not really. I mean, again, we build products for ourselves and our customers, and we take feedback from the community, and we try and make it better all the time, and are constantly pushing out new cook programs, new recipes to try and make that experience better for everyone.
Got time for one more question? Anyone? Don't have to be shy. Yes.
I was wondering about looking to sous vide for international markets and what the awareness is like for sous vide displayed around the world.
Sous vide internationally.
Yeah, about half of our business is international. Like I said, like the biggest growth regions are definitely like Asia and Latin America are huge growth regions. I think worldwide awareness is lower than in North America. So there's still like significant growth opportunities.
Excellent. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody here. Oh, sorry, Joe back there. Yes, sir.
Do you guys sell your user data?
Do you guys sell
I
your
don't.
user data?
No way.
All right. There you go. But we do need you to sign something on the way out and provide your address and social security number. Don't worry. It's all kept on premise. Thank you, everybody. Please give a big round of applause for our panel.